on self-centeredness versus selflessness. I don't know. Who's speaking? Okay. Bobby? Bonnie, I'm sorry. Bonnie. Our speaker is Bonnie.
In case you guys didn't know, I'm Bonnie, and I'm an addict. And we know now. I want to thank you for allowing me to share some of my recovery with you today. When I come here every year, I always get a workshop, and I don't pick it, and someone else picks it for me, and it never fails to be the last one I would have picked to share on. And I certainly would have picked this as my last one. But I think that's how God works, because I need to learn what I don't know, because what I do know, I already know. So anyways, we got self-centeredness versus selflessness. And I believe in researching, because so much has happened since I got here that, to focus in on this one area with my experience, strength, and hope, I didn't really think I had to research self-centeredness because I had plenty of experience, strength, and hope with that. And I did a lot of research on selflessness. But this morning I decided maybe I needed to be reminded. Self-centeredness is what affects the spiritual part of my disease, and I have no doubt in my mind today that I'm an addict. I suffer from the disease of addiction. What makes me an addict is I'm obsessive and compulsive and self-centered. And, obsession is when a thought becomes more important than anything else and I can't let go of it. And the compulsion is once I've started something, for whatever reason, the inability to stop. And the self-centeredness is a spiritual part where I become more important than anything else. Now, I love our literature. It's sad that I haven't picked up our literature in a very, very long time till recently. And I think it's really important to share where I'm at today. I can't tell my whole story because this is just a workshop, but my sponsor gave me this book on my 11th anniversary. And the book comes with these little ribbons. And the book was sealed up. She bought it before she ever met me, because when the book came out, she brought two of them, one for herself and one she knew she'd want to give away one day. And I guess that book was for me. So the ribbons, I open it up, and it's on a story, and it's called Enough. And I'm not going to read you the story because you all have the book and you can read it. But this is where I realized I was at. The day I brushed aside the devastating power of addiction, I became a conscious contributor to my disease. Now, that's how I've been living. I've been coasting for a long time, and I just got the awakening that, when we coast, it's downhill. You can only coast this way for so long, and then if you're going to keep coasting, you're going to go this way. And I was given a lot of gifts as I worked the steps, and I didn't realize how I wasn't using these gifts anymore. I'd pretty much put them out in a garage sale, in a closet. Who knows where they were, but I certainly wasn't using them. And when I first got clean and got my hands on this literature, I just couldn't get enough of it. And the first thing that I learned about self-centeredness, because this book is not only about my problem, but it's about my solution too. And on the last page of We Do Recover, because that's why I'm here, because I want to recover, it says, we cannot deal with the obsession and compulsion. The only alternative is to stop using and start learning how to live. Well, the first bell that went off in my head is, well, what about the self-centeredness? It doesn't say anything about the self-centeredness. And I realized that I guess I can do something about the self-centeredness. I'm probably always going to have obsession and compulsion, but I guess I can do something about the self-centeredness. And I think the first thing that I ever did about the self-centeredness is I quit throwing my cigarette butts on the ground. The world is not my ashtray, And do you know what? It felt good to do that. And to this day, it still bothers me if I'm smoking somewhere and I've got nowhere to put that butt. If you go check out my purse, you will find it full of cigarette butts, my coat pockets, my whatever. But the point is, the world is not my ashtray. You know, but it's funny how one little act can grow into other little acts, you know. I also learned another big part of my self-centeredness is when I think it's about me. It's always about me. I can run into you and you're having a bad day and you might not be as pleasant as I expect you to be, and I immediately think it's about me. You know, I don't take the time to think, oh, you're having a bad day. Right away I'm like, why are you being shitty with me? You know, and that's a big part of my self-centeredness. Another thing, as I began to work the steps and get these gifts, is I learned that part of my self-centeredness was thinking that I could manage my own life and that I could make my own decisions and that I didn't need a power greater than myself. And coming to terms with that, you know. I hated when I read things in this book that talked about how we're incapable of making good decisions. I thought that was bullshit, you know. But luckily, I learned what honesty meant. And for me, truth is the facts and honesty is my perception of the facts. And in our book, it doesn't say we need to come in here and change everything, although you hear that all the time. It says we need to change our perspective. And to me, that's what honesty is. It's my perspective of the truth. And so in step one, I was given that gift, a change in perspective on the truth. Because, you know, honestly, when I was out there using, I didn't think I had a problem. I honestly didn't believe that I was harming my family. I honestly believed that it was okay to steal from work. I honestly believed those things were okay. And it wasn't until I got here and got that gift that I was able to realize that it was not okay to do those things. And so it's real important to me to read the literature so that I can understand, you know, me. I can understand my problem, I can understand my solution. The other half of the topic was on selflessness. And you know what? There is no index reference in the back of this book to that. And I was just like, oh man, God's gonna make me read, you know, not cheat. You know, because that's what I do when I want to know about something. As I look back here in the index, it tells me what pages to go through, and, you know, it's like little cliff notes. Nothing. So I got to read. You know, I only found selflessness once in this whole book. And it's in our service workers' prayer, where it says, make us servants of your will and grant us a bond of selflessness. All right, it's telling me what to do, but now I need to know how to do it, you know. Same with the honesty thing. I knew I need to get honest, but I need to learn how to get honest, you know. So how do we get selfless? Then I found it one other time in here. Now, mind you, I didn't have time from the time I got this workshop to really read every page, but I did read as much as I could. It says, the second tradition concerns the nature of leadership in NA. We have learned that for our fellowship, leadership by example and by selfless service works. So, if, one more place though, because now I'm thinking about, hang on, I gotta find it because I can't do this verbatim, and I wanna tell you what it really says, not what I think it says. I'll tell you that after I tell you. Okay, so I can't do anything about obsession and compulsion, but obviously I can do something about self-centeredness. This is what I understand from what I'm reading here. It says, service acts as a conduit to relieve my self-centered thinking. So now I've tied together that selflessness applies to my service work, and that's the conduit to help me with my self-centered thinking, you know. And so now I got to reach out to other addicts and figure out how do I apply this selflessness, because I was really thinking about, I was trying to find some experience in my life where I had selfless behavior, you know? And you know, I couldn't really find any, because even when I do the right thing for the right reason, it's because the gift that I get of feeling good in my skin. Like there's nothing that I do that I don't get something back from. And to me, selfless meant I wouldn't get anything back from it, you know? So I had a hard time finding something. And then somebody mentioned to me, I'm the policy and administration chair for our area, and how that's about selflessness. And about selflessness is about being in the group, and rather than running on my own agenda, being part of the greater whole. And that, you know what? I don't agree with our policy manual. I think there's a bunch of shit in there. But, you know what? That's what we believe. So when I'm in that setting, you know what? I'm going to put aside what I think, and I'm going to follow the we. We wrote that policy manual. We prayed about it. We discussed it. We developed it. And now I am going to be part of the we and follow it, you know? I know that I'm not completely powerless as an addict, because I know there are ways when I strongly disagree with something, there's avenues to go through to change things, because we grow and change as a fellowship. But the point is we wrote that, and I'm going to be a part of that, you know? Same thing in my home group, you know? I might not... the home group I have today is one of those spirit flows meetings, but I always like the meetings where you went around the table. But the moment I decide that that's going to be my home group, you know what, that's what I'm going to do, because I want to be part of the we. So for me, my understanding of selflessness is more about when I'm part of something, to be a part of it instead of my own thing. I know that with recently what has been going on in my personal recovery, I think that service is what kept me from picking up drugs, you know. I think that I've been living a lot on service-based recovery, and I hate those people. So it was kind of a rude awakening. But, you know, I also know that in recovery, I'm right where I'm supposed to be, because I get out of this what I put into it. And, you know, anytime I don't like where I'm at, there's a solution. And for me, the solution was back to basics, and I've been going to a meeting every day. I have not went to a meeting every day for 10 years. You know what I mean? It was a long time. And every day I sit through an entire meeting to hear just that little thing that's going to make me feel okay in my skin again today, you know? Because what happened from coasting is I finally got to that place where I wasn't okay in my skin today. And I'm grateful that I had service commitments. Last night when our speaker was sharing, and it's funny because, you know, I'm just like everybody here. I am not unique. And anybody I share with has either gone through or is going through similar things that I am. And she had shared with me when she had went through that phase of not wanting to be a part of anymore, and she had service, and that kept her. And when I went through that phase, I had let all my service commitments go. So it made it easier to not be a part of anymore. You know, and even though I didn't pick up drugs in the time that I was away from the fellowship, I made some pretty lousy decisions, because we're addicts and we don't think right. I don't think right, and I need the experience, strength, and hope of you people to get me through whatever I'm going through, because when I'm in self-centered thinking, just like the book says, I'm incapable of making consistently good decisions. So I don't necessarily like everything that I read in our literature, but I know it applies in one way, shape, or form. If it don't apply today, it will apply at some point, you know. And I'm really grateful that more will be revealed, because if everything was revealed, I don't think I could handle it. So anyways, as far as self-centered versus selflessness, I think for me the solution is that when I'm feeling that self-centeredness in my life, I really do need to get into some service, because that's the area where I can practice that, And it also says in our literature that, we're not born with these gifts. We have to practice them, I know that when I became aware that it wasn't you people not practicing unity, it was me not practicing unity, that's how I ended up in the policy and administration, because that's where I needed to go to practice it. So when I'm really feeling self-centered today, that's where I need to do. I need to go do some service work. I need to get out of myself. I need to remember, as Deb reminds me, I'm not the most important person here. I'm not more special than any of you, but she also reminds me that I'm not less special than any of you, because that gets me in trouble too. I love my predecessors because they always take away the bad. When I pick it up, they take it away and remind me that I'm just an addict trying to stay clean. Do the best I can today. That's all I got to do, the best I can today, And the potential of that is dependent upon how much I ask you for help. How honest I am about letting you know where I'm really at. It was such a relief to get with my sponsor and finally be honest about where I was at so I could get into a solution, People always talk about denial. Denial is bliss. Awareness sucks, I love the acronym denial. Don't even know I'm lying. Don't even know it, And awareness sucks, and that's why I need to get in a solution. I didn't just come here because I didn't want to use drugs. I want to feel good in my skin today, I want to live with dignity, I want to find beauty in all my surroundings. I want to know how to love. I want to be loved, I want to have real self-worth. Those are the things I want to have and that I can get here. That's the freedom, And the steps led me all the way to that. But I can't coast, Coasting doesn't work here. This disease progresses even when I'm in recovery. I used to think that was a bunch of shit you people fed me to keep me coming back. It was, though. That's the irony. It was, the truth. I need to keep coming back because the disease does progress. And I learned getting clean was easy. I only had to do that once. Staying clean. Now that was work. Staying clean was work, Step work, we call it step work. It's work, But today I'm realizing, you know what the really hard part is? Living clean, And I want to live clean today. I just don't want to be clean. I want to live clean, So I think that's all I have. Thank you for letting me share.
Bonnie, I'd like to invite the second speaker to come and share.
Hello, my name is Jonah, and I'm an addict. Hi, little bit nervous. I got asked to do this like literally 15, 20 minutes ago. But I think I got to, the topic selfishness, self-centeredness versus selflessness is, something that I've seen both sides of the spectrum from and have a little bit of experience on it. So just bear with me. As far as self-centeredness goes, I remember, being the core of my addiction, in active addiction and first getting clean, it was all about me, I want what I want when I want it, and I'll, go through whoever I got to go through to get it. And, that worked for me for a little while. And then it just seemed to got to this point, though, where, the insanity kicked in, and I just kept getting the same results, which was hopelessness, misery, and, but my pride kept trying to self-will through this self-centeredness and always leading up to the same spot, which was like the readings talk about, jails, institutions, and death. And I remember coming in Narcotics Anonymous, and they had that door open for me, and that was my first little sign of what service was, through somebody else having that meeting open. There was only 2 other people there, and it was at the Alamo Club in Kalamazoo, Michigan, downstairs, and it was real. They used to smoke down there. It was real smoky, and I was just trying to quit cigarette. I tried quitting everything all at once, which was like crazy. I tried quitting, the caffeine, alcohol, drugs, cigarettes, pornos, whatever. I tried quitting it all at once, and I had to take a few of those. Back, one vice at a time, right? But so yeah, and then it was. But what I heard was even though the disease and the self-centeredness part of me was unattracted to it, because I had that wall up still, when I went back and kept repeating them same mistakes, something stuck with me. And just that message of hope, which I think is that any addict can stay clean. And I had finally seen some evidence, and that was the prime example, my first introduction to service work. And so I remember when they talked about H&I, and after 90 days clean, I signed up to do it. I was ready. I was pumped. I was still on my pink cloud, whatever. I'm going to do this H&I, but I really wasn't quite ready, knowing what I was getting into, because it was almost like I was trying to sell them Narcotics Anonymous and just base it all on, I don't know, I think I was still like trying to, like a sales pitch, or, like a commercial for, come to NA and, your life will be grand. And I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that approach, but it wasn't quite sticking right with me. And I wasn't being true to myself. So I eventually stepped back from service, though, and I didn't think I was quite ready for it. I didn't feel like I had, I started, I don't know, after the pink cloud started to fade, and ultimately I stopped writing in my steps too. I just didn't feel like I had anything to offer service except for my home group. I still made that commitment to show up to my home group, share the meeting once a week, and help make the coffee. And that was another thing too they told me that I thought was just crazy, but it actually worked. Like they say, coffee makers make it. And I didn't even know, to believe this or not, I didn't even know how to make coffee, my own coffee, until Narcotics. I'd go to the coffee shop and order coffee, but I never knew how to make a pot, or use a filter. Well, I know how to use a filter, but not for that reason. But I never knew how to make coffee with the real purpose for a filter was. So, Narcotics Anonymous has taught me a lot about just the little small things that I can take on the outside world, and but eventually, though, my sponsor was getting tired of me not writing the steps and backing out on my service commitment, so he kind of called me out on my stuff, and he pretty much, and made me take a look at it. So I signed up again to do H&I, and started writing in my steps again. And I figured, because I figured for a while I wasn't writing in my steps doing H&I, and I figured, well, if I'm going to start, going through this whole sales pitch with them, or just trying to get them to come in, I might want to have some kind of recovery instead of just abstinence, because, for a while there, that's what it was kind of leaning toward. But yeah, man, it was just, I don't know, like that whole self-centeredness, I guess that was the solution for me. The best way to get over myself, because it's all about me, poor me, woo-woo-hoo, is to get out of myself. And I found that my route is through service, and I remember hearing people talk about don't rob this program. This program offered me freedom. And for a while there, I had in my mind that I was just going to come to the meetings, maybe collect clean time, share once in a great while, just be that cat in the back that don't talk, don't hug nobody, don't go out for coffee, doesn't fellowship, because, I was letting the disease fester in, and I was thinking, trying to unique my way out. But I ultimately knew that the Narcotics Anonymous gave me the gift, which was freedom. And but this kind of gift, I had to maintain it, and I talk about that a lot during H&I, that I wish I could just wrap this whole thing up, this freedom, in a gift basket and give it to you, but it can't, but it's something that I had to work toward. It's something that the gift of freedom, it was there for me. I just had to be willing to reach out and do the work to maintain it. And for me, it is about constant, daily maintenance of this program. and service work is key. I know that through service and H&I take a lot of my affairs, that this is like practice for me for the outside world, you know. Because I was like, I was one of them, I was socially retarded. I didn't know how to interact, do relationships. I still don't know how to do relationships. You can ask my girlfriend, you know, I communicate, you know, it's still, but that's another good way to get out of yourself, you know, because being a selfish person, you hook up with somebody and you have to consider their feelings and wants and needs too. You know, that's another, you know, and Narcotics Anonymous has kind of helped me get a better understanding of that as well. And through Narcotics Anonymous, I developed a relationship with my higher power, when the best way to get out of myself is just, you know, surrender and say, you know, help me, guide me through this. You know, I can't expect him to take all my burdens and just sort them out for me, but what he does is he just makes the next right thing that much more obvious. And for me, you know, I know a lot about confusion. You know, I can do a whole workshop on confusion, but what he helps me do is, you know, clear that confusion up a little bit, because I used to always, you know, I was one of them like philosophers when I came into NA. You know, well, why this, or how does this work? I don't understand. Why do you do the prayer? What's this chant? You know, why do you guys drink so much coffee? I didn't understand why are you guys so happy and claim you're clean? That was whew, you know. And so I was big, you know, I didn't understand. I wanted to overanalyze every little aspect of my life and this program, and understand what's the next right thing, because it was kind of confusing in the beginning. But, you know, I've learned throughout the years that it's just, you know, if my gut's telling me one thing and it's twisting, that's probably like, you know, my intuition, my conscious, you know, for me today, that's my higher power talking to me. And you know, doing the service work though, like I do the H&I every Friday night at the Jim Gilmore Center, and I've actually, you know, it gets kind of awkward sometimes. I've come across addicts I used to use with. That's always like, I remember this one guy, man, I always thought he was the man and could always put one down, and he could just, you know, shoot with the best of them and just go home and do his life and had a good job. And I used to envy this guy, because I was like going back to like the mission, or where, you know, under a rock, you know, crawling under a rock, and this guy was going back to a mansion, like, and getting high like I was. And there he was in Gilmore, and just like, you know, and to see that humility of him broken down and trying to ask me for help, it was like fucking kind of overwhelming. But it just, you know, it's a constant reminder too that the disease is out there, still kicking ass, taking names, and it doesn't discriminate about social status, race, sexual orientation, none of that. Because, you know, my idea of an addict, you know, was in the beginning I had all them yets, and then once I lived out them yets, it was like, okay, you know, I could finally identify. And I try to I try not to bring in my own mess too when I go to H&I, because a lot of those days is on Friday night at 7 o'clock, and I could always think of 100 different things I could be doing. And I really don't, but getting there is the hard part. But once I'm there, and I speak and I listen, and I try to even give them a chance to share. It's like a panel thing, but I always try to at least listen and get some feedback from them. Because based on my experience, I remember sitting on their side in Gilmore, and the people would come in on the panel, and they share for like an hour, and I'd be trying to peep in, and maybe, you know, I probably didn't have no recovery at all to say, but just being able to say something helped, just like, you know, took some relief. Gave me a little bit of relief. So I try to do that in there with them, just kind of give them a chance to just whatever, you know, and still sometimes trying to maintain order too, because sharing them things, it can get kind of chaotic and off topic. But I don't know. But when I leave there though, that feeling I get when I get in my car and was like, okay, that's what I needed. That was that dose of spirituality that helped get me out of myself, man. And I recently had to start like recommitting to some service commitments, because my life got full. My plate got a little bit over full sometimes. I work full time, and I'm a full-time student at KVCC, and I work, 8 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon, and go to school from 6 to 10 at night, Monday through Thursday I go to school, and Monday through Saturday I'm working. And I needed something for my recovery to kick up. So like a couple months ago, I put in for this weekend off to be able to come here. It's my first time here, and I know even though it rained the past couple of days, it looks like, you know, the sun's coming out though, and it looks, you know, I'm actually, it was hard at first when I first came here. I took all my homework here, and was still in that mode. But it's like, you know, I had to get out of myself and like come to a couple workshops and get back in tune with recovery, because I was still in that self mode of, because that's kind of might be an aspect of my disease too. And part of selfishness or self-centeredness is always being in like work mode. I can't sit still. I have to constantly be working or, thinking I'm doing something that's like, some kind of project or an assignment. And so, and then like my balance though is recovery and service, because it kind of just like stabilizes me a little bit and makes me, just kind of reminds me like slow down, it's okay. And that gratitude too, that gratitude of people, seeing people come in out of the rain, out of the trenches, and just like, and when I feel my lowest self-esteem inside, whatever crap I'm going through, like, ooh, the bills are too high this month, or ooh, my girlfriend's mad at me, or ooh, my boss is like, giving me shit, and then I come see them and how just that pain in their eyes and how they're looking at me or Narcotics Anonymous as some kind of glimpse of hope, and my higher power God is trying to use me as a vessel to like somehow spread that and let them reach out to me is, that's the true blessing, that's the true gift that this program has offered me. Like this is the best life I've ever known. I wouldn't trade it. And I'm glad I renewed my service commitments. I also took on a responsibility with my home group at the area level of being in charge of the literature. And I'm also doing activities committee of Kalamazoo, Michigan. So if you guys ever make it to Kalamazoo, we have activities every month. I just thought I'd throw that little plug in there. We got but actually June though, they didn't decide on it was like, it gets kind of chaotic sometimes. That's another thing I found out about service, which I almost gave it up, was because sometimes with service, when not enough people would step up, I would feel like I was taking on all the burdens of service myself, and my ego would kick in. Service wouldn't survive without me, but it survived quite well before I came along. And it's just, I feel like somebody else needs to step up. I'd go to the meeting and share, and I do this H&I every week, and nobody ever shows up. They talk about showing up, but people will show up when they're ready to. And I mean, if I'm really trying to plug service work and I'm sounding like an asshole, I mean, that's not really, like service really worked well for him. He's like, but and I had to pray. I had to talk to my sponsor, pray about that, and just not have to worry about that, just like I used to, always worrying about, that's in the beginning, that was really big with me. Always worrying about, other people's shit and what their commitments were and if they were being hypocrites or not. And it really was just so I didn't have to look in the mirror and look at Jonah, because my character defects can damn sure recognize yours. And I probably would just, still be in denial of my own. So, yeah. I don't know, man. That's pretty much all I got. So thanks, guys.
Thanks for sharing, guys. Before opening the floor for sharing, remember that you are being taped. If you wish not to be taped, please let him know so that the tape can be turned off. So the floor is going to be open for after comments. No problem.
Do this without the baby waking up. And I called Gabby. I've been coming here 15 years, and this is the first time I spoke after a workshop, which is weird. But it's just hilarious because I'm going through this whole learning about selflessness. And it's funny because I've been learning about selflessness, and what I've learned is, it's really the answer to my codependency. It's doing the right thing for the right reason in the right way, and that's the key, the right way. Because with codependency, which is a part of self-centeredness, it's just so easy, it's so easy to think that I'm helping people out, because I'm doing this for you. I'm doing this for you in NA. I'm doing this for you in my family. I'm doing this for you for work, But really, they're just like, you know what? We don't want you to do this for us, because you're starting to be a bitch, So, codependency is not selflessness, and realizing that I'm giving something to somebody that they never asked for and then resenting them for it is not, is not recovery. When I first got clean, people joked, if you want to learn about powerlessness, you should get a sponsee, and if you want to learn about selflessness, become a mom, and it's really true for me. I've been going through a lot of martyrdom, I feel like I'm a martyr now in the past couple of years, and my husband told me if I wanted a martyr, I would marry your mom, and so I started looking at that, and I started going, getting with people that have that experience as far as just really, trying to balance out my life once again, which is hilarious because, my higher power does that for me. The workshop before was on the second step, and the second step, I've been on the second step for a year now because my sponsor now is, she got up with me, and I've been doing the steps for a long time now, and she's just like, you know what, just write about, you're pretty sane. Just write about your insanity for a week. Every day, write your insanity for that day, whether it's your husband is sipping his coffee too loud or whatever. Just write your insanity, what's going through your mind. And I was like, okay, and I wrote it down for a week. And I told her after that week, and she was just like, okay, we need to deal with your insanity. so I wrote on that for a couple months, and just to see what was going on, and I got hope from that. It's just slowly but surely I started feeling more sane, just dealing with my insanity. And then she started telling me, okay, now you need to write about your selflessness, because I beat myself up and I get into this whole limbo of, okay, to-do lists, and I got to get all this stuff done, and I'm not living life, and there's a lot of selflessness involved, but there's a spirit behind selflessness that I want to do, but I get too wrapped up in me, I get too wrapped up in my codependent bullshit that I don't enjoy my life again. My home group has a Pineco meeting every New Year's Eve, and this year, I threw in, my codependency, and I took back, I wanted to be happy, joyous, and free again in my recovery, because you go through these lapses and twirls around in recovery, and sometimes I'm happy, joyous, and free, sometimes I'm just happy, sometimes, but it's been a while since I've had this joy, I have some joy, but I'm taking it away by my codependency. So selflessness for me is really, I was listening to a speaker tape recently, and this woman was talking about how she wants her family to come home for Thanksgiving. I was like, well, no fucking duh, And she's like, well, what I mean is that I don't want, my son to come home from Thanksgiving and say, you know what, you're going to love my mom. And this is why, because she woke up at 4 in the morning and she put the turkey in, and she cleaned all the stuff, and she's been cleaning the house for 5 days, and this list of things that she did. She wants her son to come home because, you know what, you're going to like my house because it's joyful and it's peaceful, and we're just going to have a good time. Just having that atmosphere of happiness and joy, instead of, well, this is what my mom did for me, kind of shit. I don't want my family or anybody to know my list of events of how to make their life peaceful and happy, because that's not peaceful and happy, So for me, that's what I'm working on, is just trying to just groove with it, I guess, and just kind of do what I can and enjoy as much as I can, So that's all I got.
I like to tell stories. A long time ago, when I was using a bunch of dope fiends, we all loaded up in the car because nobody could trust another person with $20. So there's 6 of us in the car, and I'm driving to go cop, and it's a big snowstorm, and someone had slid off the road in the ditch. And I said, I'm pulling over and we're helping this person out of the ditch. And they're like, what? You keep on going. And I'm like, no, I'm pulling over. We're helping this person out of the ditch, or else you can walk. And so now we got 6 crackheads helping someone out of the ditch in a snowstorm, you know. And I think all the way back then, I knew that if I did something for somebody, it made me feel good inside, you know. And I don't know, maybe that story, because it was so crazy in addiction, is still circulating in crack houses in Detroit today. I don't know, because it's so opposite at that time. But it's what we do here in recovery today. We help others. And thinking of selfishness and selflessness, you know, they used to tell me the disease was like Mike Tyson. And we'd get in that ring and he'd beat us down and we'd crawl out. And then we'd get right back in that ring again and take that beating over and over and over. And so I like to think that genuine acts of kindness or selfless service is punching the disease in the face. You know, doing something like that is hitting the disease. You know. And just recently I went through this thing with, and it's really funny, is opening the door for someone. Genuine act of kindness, right? Going into a store, hold the door, let them in. Genuine act of kindness. I like to be a door holder. The speaker last night said she was a servant, and I could really identify with that. I like to serve. So I will hold the door for anyone at any chance I get. But here we go into the bank, and they got 2 doors. And I hold the first door, and then that person holds the second door. And I'm like, this is cool. One person doing something nice, and the next person doing something nice. It's interaction, it's helping. But then my disease comes in and goes, this is really cool because now I'm first in line. See, I open the door, they open it for me, now I'm first in line. Ha ha. You know? And my disease likes to come in with that monkey wrench and take something that's good and right and try to confuse me with something selfish. Now I'm first in line, you know. This is last week. I got 16 years clean, and I'm stumbling about holding a door open at the bank for someone. You know, so I pray about it. My higher power says, KISS, keep it simple, stupid. Do the right thing for the right reason. Hold the door for somebody. You know, don't get confused about that. And let the disease get punched in the face rather than me complicating it and starting to have to question something that's right. You know, it's trying to get a jab in on me. You know, so it's funny that a cliche like keep it simple, stupid, that I learned way back when I was like, all these acronyms and cliches and so forth can come into play at any time to help me out to get through something like that. So simple. I can't stand to hear at the table that it's a selfish program. And I don't know where that comes from. It circulates every now and then. I hear it still. It's been years. And, you know, self-centeredness is at the core of the disease, you know, and selfless service is the gift to make us feel complete. Thank you.
I'm an addict. My name's Mark. Thank you, Bonnie. Thanks, Jonah. Anybody willing to share. Thanks for being here. I mean, it's a sunny day for the first time in a while, and here we are sitting in here, you know. The self-centered, I'm reminded of that line in the basic text. Using addicts are self-centered, frightened, angry, lonely people. So I can be that in recovery. I can be frightened, angry, lonely, self-centered. Walk into a meeting and be pissed off because I'm going through something and somebody comes in that's surrendering for the first time. I want the attention, man. I want the attention. Somebody else is getting it. The self-centeredness is so destructive. But how do I get out of it? Spiritual principles. The 12th step talks about, I didn't come here looking for no spiritual awakening. I wanted the pain to go away. I was looking for absence of pain, man. That's what I was looking for. Absence of pain. And then when the pain starts going away and I get these little glimpses of, at that time, what I thought was serenity, but what do I got to compare it to? X number of years of using, X number of hours clean, you know, and the getting better, the little glimpses of sunlight in between the pain, pretty soon, give me a month of this, and I think I don't need meetings anymore. I got this figured out. Now all I got to do is go back to work, show up on time, and make a whole lot of money to take care of a whole lot of people that I've been screwing for a whole lot of time. And I forget that without trying to learn the selflessness, see, that's where the gift start comes in, is the selflessness. Because I'm not a selfless person. I'll bullshit you into thinking I am. Oh yeah, man, you want help getting out of the ditch? Hey, we got you out of the ditch. What you got? You know? Come over to my house, help me cut some wood. Hey, no problem, man. What you got? You know? I'm there to help, but what are you going to give me for that help? So to come in here and to come in here and to learn these things that are so against the nature of what I am, and to start applying these things and practicing these things, and then I'll get all caught up. Let me slip one time. Let me hold the door for you, and then start laughing because I'm the first in line. All of a sudden, I'm the most miserable bastard there is. You know, I forget that the whole thing is progressive, man. And I'll slip for a second and think, I'm doing it all wrong. What did I miss? What did I miss? I didn't miss nothing, man. I'm living life on life's terms, and I'm really not used to that. And a part of this, and I like what Gabby was talking about too, about the codependency, because I'll get that mixed up. And see, then when I'm in that mode of selflessness, I will turn myself into a victim in a New York second, man. Don't you see what I'm doing for you? Well, okay, so what do you want back, man? What do you want back? Why aren't you doing it for you? What about the selflessness? So service, you know, service really does get me there. I know that to live in service-based recovery, you know what? If it keeps me clean till I can get back to recovery-based service, it's a process. And again, I'm not the first son of a bitch in Narcotics Anonymous to let that happen to, and I probably won't be the last. And it whatever gets us, you know, whatever gets us through that makes us stronger. I'm really down with that, you know. And that strength That's how we grow. We grow through the pain. I really like growing through your pain, okay? I dig that, man. When you're having pain, I mean, man, when newcomers are talking about, I don't want what you people got. I don't want what I got. I don't know. I'm smiling, man, because I'm thinking, you know what? I'm not laughing, but I'm smiling because I'm thinking, you are thinking about changing. And you are sitting in this room wondering, you don't fit in where you were. You don't fit in where you are. I don't want that dilemma anymore, man. I don't want that dilemma anymore. I got to keep coming back just to get out of that dilemma. And the true selflessness for me comes in that whole be here now thing. Wherever if I can truly be in the moment, whatever that moment is bringing, and I'm not thinking about 5 minutes down the road, or I'm not thinking about 3 seconds ago, I'm becoming selfless because I'm in the moment. I'm in the moment. No matter what that moment's bringing. A lot of times I don't want to be there. What is the triangle of self-obsession, you know? Anger is my reaction to my present reality. My present reality can really suck, but as long as I'm in that moment and I'm not ending up in handcuffs as a result of that anger, or I'm not ending up at the dope house as a result of that anger, I'm going to grow through whatever that is. And this program really has taught me service in a lot of other areas in my life that I would probably never have gone into, but I have. And I'm so grateful to be a part of this thing that I was so skeptical about. So this shit'll never work for me. I don't need to quit getting high all the time. I just gotta slow down a little bit. You know, that was my whole gig. Let's just slow down. I'll just quit getting high during a full moon. That's the fucking problem. We never, the text talks about it. I never look at the using as the problem, the stopping, or I think is what it says. That's what it said to me anyways. But yeah, I never look at the dope wasn't the problem. It was the situations. And if I can come in here and you guys can teach me how to get through those situations, because like I heard earlier, how can you be happy and not be high? Somebody's lying to me, man. Somebody's lying to me. Y'all ain't happy. Not, you're just not. You can't be. Because that's what I knew. Just sometimes I got a little too high. Okay, so I need to pull back. So I'm glad I pulled back enough and let you in enough to learn that abstinence is the way. So if you're struggling with this thing, just keep coming back and don't use. And don't, just if you don't believe, just keep coming and believe that we believe, And when you get it, pass it on. Thanks.